My work should speak for itself, right? Yeah, sorry, it doesn't. Even Jesus had a PR guy. 4 of them, actually. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So, what makes you think you're so special? None of us are. Which means all of us have to put in the work to make ourselves visible. Good thing Sue Barber already did a bunch of the work for us. Her book, The Visibility Factor, outlines the stuff we can do to get others to take notice of our awesomeness. She had to learn the hard way when a mentor called her out for being invisible as an executive with Kraft Heinz. Being invisible may sound like a fun superpower, but it sucks at work. You get overlooked for the good assignments and promotions, and you get stuck playing short field on the company softball team. Sue and I talked about how you can step up your visibility game without bragging or sucking up to the boss. Observe others who do it well. Offer to help team members more often. Share ideas in meetings and ask for input. Invite key team members to important meetings so they can see you in action. And talk about your cats. Okay, that one's from me. We talk about a lot more than cats during our conversation. Sue really knows her stuff. Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Sue. Okay, Sue Barber, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You talk a lot about this idea of visibility at work and as a leader. And it's one we haven't covered too much on the show. And I think it's really interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. Before we do, love to give you a chance just to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do and how you came to be doing it.
Sure. Well, before I started my own business in 2016, I worked at Kraft Heinz, Kraft Foods, all the crafts, all the illusions of craft and how it changed. But I started there in sales, moved into supply chain, then into IT. And as part of the Heinz merger, I just decided it was time for me to go start my own thing. And I had done so much in leadership there that it was great for me to be able to start to take that, what I learned myself, and apply that to others. And that is really the place where I figured out that I wasn't being visible. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn, which I know we're going to get into, so I won't share it all right now. But that lesson really kind of set me off on this course of how can I help other people learn the lessons that I learned. And so I have been doing that ever since, and it's been a lot of fun. So I do workshops and one-on-one coaching and helping clients learn how to talk about their success and results. And most of my clients are quiet, more introverted people, high achievers, though, that really want to take it to the next level and are just not sure how to do that.
I love that. And yeah, we will come back to some of that experience you had that helped you discover your own ability to be more visible. Before we do that, I'd love to ask, what role does work play in your life?
Probably a big role.
Okay.
If I'm honest, I'll
That's
be
fair.
honest with you. I was just listening to something yesterday. It was talking about like how much time do you spend working? You know, I started working with a lot of hours at almost every job. My first job in sales, I didn't work a ton of hours, but after that role, every role I had seemed to just require a ton of hours. We were either going through a transformation or doing something different and new. And then when I got into systems, of course, your time is not always your own when there's a systems failure of some sort. So you have to wake up in the middle of the night and deal with those things.
Of course.
So I think, I think it built a habit in me of working a lot. And now that I have my own, it's fun to get to do this stuff. So it's really hard for me to sometimes turn it off, but I've been trying to be better. It's just not always easy. And I'm doing a workbook. So right now that's kind of taking a lot of priority in my life right now to get this workbook done and out into the world. So when I'm working on that and launching that, that takes more time.
Yeah. And I think you're bringing up an interesting question, this idea of when we really love our work. I won't do the old cliche, like it doesn't feel like work, or like, I think it can still feel like work, but it also feels like energy,
Yes.
and that's really tricky because there's probably a tipping point at which you're starting to deplete that energy, but sometimes
Hmm.
the fumes of that energy stays with us and we just kind of go, right? Have you found anything that helps you notice when you're pushing it beyond where it maybe should be?
I mean, I definitely can feel it in my body. I'm
Yeah.
more tired. I can tell that my energy isn't there. And I think I went through this before when I launched my first book, and it was a lot to launch. And
Hmm.
then after that, I definitely burned myself out
Yeah.
trying to, get out and talk about the book and speaking and podcasts and then I launched my own podcast. So I was really crazy doing both
Yeah.
things at the same time. But
Yeah.
I think that is where I really felt it. And so the year after that, I said, I need time and space. I just
Hmm.
have to give myself that to kind of come back to center, if you will. And
Hmm.
I definitely felt much better after
Yeah.
that. I realized that I was trying to do too much, and I'm a little bit of an overachiever by nature. And so I just had to really be kind to myself and say,
Hmm.
you can't do everything, or you're not going to be here to help anybody if you're burned out, right?
Yeah. It feels like almost a recognition that we can have different seasons to the way we show up, right? Where,
Hmm.
okay, I can go in a little bit harder for a little bit, a little stronger, but recognizing that at some point there's going to need to be a little bit of a reset. And, it doesn't always have to be steady Eddie. There can be a little
No.
ebb and flow as long as you're listening to what those signals are coming from your body. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you the funny story, which is not so funny for me, but
Yeah.
I can laugh at it now. But when I decided to take that year of time and space,
Mm-hmm.
about June, I think it was 23rd, my daughters both have a dog, and I took one of the dogs out, and the dog decided to run, and I didn't let go of the leash. And so broke my arm. So
Wow.
that was like, okay, universe, I hear you. I know I said I wanted time and space. I wasn't really thinking about breaking my arm to do it, but yeah,
Yeah.
so that was my funny moment. Not so funny for me, but I think
Yeah.
it definitely listens, right? I said I wanted that, so it created an opportunity for me to have it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no, not fun going through that, but it does seem like sometimes life will give us the louder signal if we're not listening to the quieter
Correct.
ones.
Correct. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yes. So everybody pay attention to those signals.
Listen.
You don't want to break your arm or something worse.
Yes. Yeah. Well, speaking of things that are not great, I'm curious for you, like, what was like the suckiest work experience you had?
Oh, wow. That's
You
a
don't have to
great
name names.
question. Yeah, I definitely will not name names. They may be listening. You never know.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. I think I would have to say there was a program that I was a part of that did not have enough resources. And I, at that point in my life, wasn't confident enough to recognize that I was being thrown into a situation that was not great.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of being set up to fail in some ways, although no one, of course, would ever say that.
Yeah.
But I remember being on the phone all the time. I was in meetings all the time. I had a really small team, and I should have had probably three times the team that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't expect someone to put me in a position where I wasn't, set up for success.
Mm.
So I learned a lot from that experience and recognized that I needed to use my voice in a bigger way. I needed to speak up for what I really needed. And I did eventually get to that place where I put together, here's what the team really needs to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where we actually need more than me to lead this one. We need three of me, right,
Yeah.
to be able to do this. So I think it was a little bit of an experiment to let's throw Sue in and see how she does.
Yeah.
And I survived it, but I wouldn't say it was great. But I definitely learned, and it was so out of my comfort zone. I was working on things that were not anything I had ever done before, which is,
Mm.
I love to learn. So that was
Yeah.
good, but so technical,
Mm.
so much more technical than I had the experience or education for. So I had a great team, but it was just not enough. So yeah, it was
Mm.
a good learning. And I talk about the things I learned from that experience with a lot of clients because they also get thrown into things that they're not expecting. And how do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Mm.
How can you use your voice to say, this isn't working. We need to do something different and
Yeah.
sell a new idea.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great point because we can we can look at the sucky experience and just purely see the negative of it, and in some ways then you can just get trapped in it because you don't see a
Yeah.
way out. Or you can do what you did, was, well, let me figure a way out. And it might not have been fun the whole time figuring that out, but you figured something out and you move through it, and then you learn things for the next time. And that's a tough mindset sometimes to get into, that those sucky experiences are teaching us something. Do you find that you're quicker to notice that now, having gone through that particular experience?
Yeah, I definitely think it helped me trust my intuition a lot more. I
Yeah.
think I knew probably earlier on that I would have cared to admit that there was a problem. And I don't know, I trusted my leadership maybe
Yeah.
too much and thought, this couldn't possibly be happening. Why isn't someone else noticing? But
Yeah.
that's, because I wasn't saying anything. So how would they know?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's this little process you have to go through for yourself to learn that and figure out, if I had spoken up or said
Mm-hmm.
something different, would it be different? And now it's more about, how do I not get myself into situations that aren't good for me with certain clients, or,
Mm-hmm.
having stronger boundaries, I think
Yeah.
just helps me a lot more now that I recognize situations that, maybe I'm looking for transformation and the client is only looking for transactional stuff.
Mm.
And so those were hard lessons that I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
And you have to learn in the new world you're in just as much as the old world. So
Mm.
things like that, I have started to pay a lot more attention to. And I think it's given me the opportunity to use my voice again and say, are you really seeking transformation? If you just want transactions, like, I can come in and train really
Yeah.
quick and say, check the box. But if
Mm-hmm.
you want transformation, that's going to take longer. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't just flip a switch and have people change the way they think
Mm-hmm.
about things and lead differently. So
Yeah. Mm.
it's given me new language to use. Those situations are also things you learn from,
Yeah.
where it's not ideal, but you learn from it and you do something with it now.
Mm. That distinction between transactional and transformational is really interesting. I mean, I see it in my own work as a coach, and I think it really will resonate with folks from my old industry, advertising, because you work with clients who want something, some kind of advertising work, campaign
Yeah.
thinking, brand idea. And there really are distinctions. There are clients who really are just looking for something transactional. I need stuff to fill my media buy. I don't want it to be terrible, but like, I don't need it to be earth shattering. And I
Right.
sometimes think there would be value in really having that conversation and getting really clear on, where are you on this dial between transactional and transformational, so that we can have a really useful, honest working relationship. Because I know my mind would shift a little and go, okay, well, what does that look like? What's the best version of that? Instead of what it sounds like what you were kind of doing in your own experiences. It's like you want to push people towards the big thing because that's
Yeah.
what lights you up.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but I don't want that. Okay. Well, then
Right.
I can
Yeah.
either deliver what you want or choose not to work with you, because that's not what I do. And those are hard conversations, because it opens up, the possibility of not getting the work. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
But, you just brought up something that I think is very true. In my IT world, there were times where we would hear from a client, we want this great thing.
Mm.
And we would build the most featured system in the
Yeah.
world that half those features would never be used.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to talk to my team, like, do they really want it, or do they
Yeah.
just think they want it?
Yeah.
So, like, it's kind of the minimum viable product. What do we need to create so that
Mm-hmm.
it meets the need, but it's not so expensive and time
Yeah.
consuming for us to build?
Mm. Yeah. And then if you really get to the heart of that, then you're saving time for when the client really wants the whole
The
thing.
big thing.
Yeah. I want to shift over to this idea of visibility. And I think at a really high level, what do you mean when you say visibility?
I really think of it as being able to show your value and be seen for your talents. And I think a lot of people tend to shy away from that. They feel like it's bragging. They feel like people will judge them, that they're putting on a display, they're being too self-promotional.
Yeah.
And what they really don't understand, and what I had to learn myself, is that hard work is important,
Mhm.
but it's only going to take you so far. And
Yeah.
if you're not telling people what you're doing or talking about your successes and accomplishments, they're not going to know because everybody's so busy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got a million meetings on their calendars. And, I remember my own, I would have three at the same time and have to pick and choose which one I would go to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you just have to recognize. And what I'm trying to teach people is that visibility isn't an extra job. It isn't something above and beyond what you're doing. It's taking what you're already doing and leveraging it
Mm.
in a way that is, you're already in a meeting. Let's find ways for you to speak up or ask a question or offer
Mm-hmm.
to help. It's not something that we have to make complicated.
Yeah.
And I think just the thought of visibility feels big. And I
Yeah.
want to help people understand that these are just baby steps we're going to start taking. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really huge stuff, but it will start to impact your confidence, which then impacts how other people see you.
Mm. How do you walk that line between what can feel like bragging versus just stating what is?
A lot of times I'll give them examples. And, I think we've all worked with somebody who's a big bragging person,
Yeah.
and I
Mm-hmm.
definitely had some of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the only thing I had ever seen. So that's why I didn't want to speak up. I didn't
Yeah.
want to do that. So I try to give them examples. Like someone might say, my team is the best team in the whole company. I can't believe how great we are. Versus, my team is doing some amazing things. I'm so proud of them. I
Mm-hmm.
really am excited for their success and our success as a company. You can
Mm-hmm.
hear the difference in
Yeah.
my language, right? And
Mm-hmm.
language is the whole piece of this, I think, for
Yeah.
everybody to just recognize how to use it differently.
Mm. What about you know, the visibility that there's sort of visibility peer level, level above. Now, what about going all the way to the top? Like, let's say you're a director or something, and you'd really like the C-suite to be aware that, kind of get on their radar a little bit and let them know, like,
Hmm.
you're kind of coming up the ranks and you're doing some cool stuff. How do you do that in a um, thoughtful way versus a way that can feel a little pushy?
Hmm. Well, I think you have to start having the conversations and maybe even clarity for yourself about what it is you want. So if
Yeah.
I have interest in, let's say I'm a director and I want to be a VP, then being clear with your manager, this is where I really want to go. Also start sharing that with other influencers in the organization or people that you work with, saying,
Mm-hmm.
I love what I'm doing. I'm so excited, but I really have aspirations to do the next level. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to talk to you about how you did that. So start having those relationships where you're spreading the
Mm-hmm.
word.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge advocate, and I know some organizations don't really love this, but I think having a skip level one-on-one, so your
Mm-hmm.
manager's manager,
Yeah.
I think is a great way to start building that relationship, start having the conversation about what you want, what you're
Mm.
interested in, and ask them who else you should meet with.
Yeah.
Like we have to kind of get the word out there because, I'm sure you've been through these too. Like when you're in a succession meeting, if people know your name and know what you bring to the table and that you're valuable, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to want to think about you for future things. But if they
Yeah.
have no idea who you are or
Mm-hmm.
what you do, that's like the kiss of death, right? Nobody
Yeah.
nobody wants that because you're at risk of not being considered for a promotion, but you also may be risking not being there in the long
Mm.
term
Yeah.
because they have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's up to us to advocate for ourselves. Of course, you want your manager to help wherever
Mm-hmm.
possible,
Yeah.
but not everybody's manager is good at it.
Yeah.
So I want you people to learn how to do it on their own so that they can feel like they're controlling their own destiny a bit more.
Mm. Yeah. This idea of being visible for potential future opportunities is interesting because I know even myself, I probably was guilty of this where you think people know that I would be good at that and want that, whatever that thing is. Like you just
Yeah,
make these assumptions. And my experience ultimately told me that mostly people don't know. You know,
right.
they definitely don't know if you want it. And they might not think you're right for it because they're not hearing the story. They're not hearing it the way it's showing up for you and realizing some of the different skills and talents that you're leveraging to get this work done that would make you good for
Yeah.
that. They might not see that. I also, this idea of the skip level meeting is really interesting to me because there's some grace and some dexterity, I feel like, involved in how you do that. I know I've had a couple of clients where they want to do that, and then when they've done that, they've kind of gotten scolded by their manager for like, well, what are you doing kind of going above or around me? So how do you do that in a way that doesn't ruffle feathers but still gets what you need?
Yes, to me, those are red flags. So I'll just share a little bit about that. So
Yeah.
my company was very openly and supportive of people doing that. They actually encouraged us to do it.
Yeah.
But I have worked with clients just like yours that tried to do it, got their hand slapped. So what I will say to them is let your manager know that you're interested in meeting with their manager. And here's the topics you want to talk about. If they're not really supportive, that's where I want you to like spread out and talk to more people in the organization, because you need to have fans, I will call them, people who are using your name and talking about you. But to me, that is a sign of a insecure manager.
Yeah.
Who will not let their person talk to their manager because they're worried about what might be said about them. So that just to me is a sign of that. And I try to tell my people, have some compassion. Maybe they've never experienced it for themselves to do a skip level and they don't know what that means and they're worried. But you have to talk about what you're going to talk about so that way there's no, I'm not going to, share all the secrets that I have about you.
Exactly. I'm sure that's the fear, right? That it's going to become a complaint session about the person stuck in the middle. Yeah. I'm curious. You mentioned earlier, you had some learning experiences around this idea of visibility yourself. What helped you recognize the importance of being visible?
Well, my situation was someone else told me that I wasn't being visible, which was a hard bit of feedback to get. I was considered a top talent. I was part of this elite leadership group in IT. And so I think I got complacent. I think, I've already got to this place. I'm already doing all the right things. Everybody sees me as a rock star, if you will. So I probably don't need to do these things. Other people need to be visible. I don't need to do that. So I think that's what happened. But I had a one-on-one with a mentor of mine who said, Sue, I just have to tell you, you're being invisible. You're sitting in the back of the room. You're not participating in meetings. Why do you even go? Now, just imagine 1 second I'm a top talent. The next second, do I have a career here anymore? I don't know. So it was tough to hear. But again, I'm kind of this person who internalizes it first and then says, what am I going to do about it? And so that's when I figured out, okay, how can I be visible in a way that's not bragging? And so I went to find a book. I couldn't really find a book that did what I was hoping for. And so that's why I wrote my book, to kind of fill the need for others who are going to experience that at some point along the way. But it was a great opportunity for me to start to observe others. What are other people doing to be visible? How are they doing it? How can I adapt that into my style?
Yeah.
So it was this pivotal moment that I could have played the victim. I could have said, she's wrong. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm amazing. Don't you know I'm a top talent? I could have done all that. That was probably not going to go over well, though. So I just chose to say, okay, I'm going to start taking actions that are different. So I sat at the executive table for our meetings. I got there first. It was a very bold move for me at that point. And I started recognizing that I'm not only being invisible for myself, but for my team. And that killed me when I recognized that.
Yeah.
So that was definitely not what I wanted to happen. And I met with a business mentor who said, Sue, you have so much information to share. And if you're not sharing it, your leadership team is going to make the wrong decisions. And that's not on them, that's on you. So it was really a little tough love, but I was so glad that both of the people gave me honest feedback. I think that's the best gift anyone can give you, and it's a choice of what you do with it.
Yeah, and I like, as you're describing that feedback, it's direct. It feels hard but kind, but it also feels like, I like this notion of, here's what happens if you become visible, or here's what happens if you stay invisible, like helping you see and connect those dots in a way that you maybe weren't connecting them at that time. And I can see that for a lot of us, that sometimes you get hard feedback. That's part of the story, but what is going to be improved by applying that feedback and leaning into it. And that note about the visibility of the team, that really hits, because I think we can get sort of myopic towards our own experience and forget that the responsibilities we have for our team include that this idea that we're trying to help elevate everybody and help everybody be seen and recognized for all the good stuff they're doing. I'm curious for you, what you mentioned, this idea of sort of molding it to your own style. And that's part of this question. I think this authenticity, it can feel inauthentic at times to talk about ourselves. What did that look like for you? How did you find language that sat well with you, but also achieved what it needed to?
Well, when I started doing those observations, I remember distinctly being in this meeting. There's probably 30 of my peers and above in this meeting. And I thought, okay, this is my moment. I'm going to pay attention to what they say and do. And I recognized they're just offering to help. They're just sharing an idea. They're, giving their team an opportunity to do something. And I thought, well, that's not that hard. Why am I making this such a big mountain to climb?
Yeah.
It's not really that hard. It's just a way of doing it that's different than I'm used to. And so I started doing that and just recognizing, I think that business mentor helped me a lot recognize that I had a lot of value to bring. And not sharing it is not going to help anybody, especially me. So in meetings, I would start asking a question. In conversations, I would add on to someone else's comments or questions. I made sure my team got an opportunity to present things. And I brought them to the table with me. Like, I'm right here with you. I'm not going to leave you.
Yeah.
But I want you to start getting visibility too, because it's important for you guys to do that as well. So it was those little things that were very actionable, very apparent to other people that something is different. And when I started to feel different, it changed how people started to respond to me. So that's what I will always tell people is you're going to feel different first. And then because of your confidence and recognizing your value, other people are going to notice that and say, oh, Sue's acting different today. That's new. And then they're going to say, is it a one-off or is she consistent? Is she keep doing it? So you just have to keep doing it. Once you start, you have to keep doing it. Otherwise they'll say, oh, that was just a off day for her. I don't know what was going on that day.
Yeah. Off day, but on the other side, like,
right.
Yeah. I mean, this idea of that it feels different. Did it feel different, but also feel true to you? Did it feel like you, but just a different side of you?
Yeah, I think so, because I try to be authentic no matter what I'm doing. And a lot of people who meet me will say, you sound just like you do on your podcast. You sound just like you do when you speak. I really tried, no matter what I'm doing, to be authentic. And so that was important to me.
Yeah.
If you're not authentic to who you are and the way you talk about things, you're going to sabotage.
Yeah.
You just will, because you're going to be out of alignment. So I knew that whatever I tried had to just feel like me. And I made, some different changes along the way to make it work better for me. But all the things that I learned, I put into the book. There's hundreds and hundreds of ideas. And some of that is from clients. Some of that is from my team that I had. Some of it's from my own. But I've learned so much more even since the book came out that now that's why I had to write the workbook, because there's just so many different ways, as I'm coaching somebody, and I'm sure you experience this too when you're coaching someone, they have a different scenario than you've experienced. And so how do you help them see it differently and reframe it for them?
Yeah, I like the idea of the workbook a lot, because, we read a book and what I find when I read a book is I usually have a few things that I can absorb and apply. And the rest is sort of sitting in the back of the brain, maybe ready for access in crisis or something. And the workbook is what brings a lot of that stuff forward and habitualizes it and gets you really living it as opposed to maybe dabbling in it.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a great addition to what you're bringing. Yeah. I'm curious, why do you think some folks choose to stay invisible?
Fear, number one. Fear is a huge deterrent from doing something different or pushing yourself out of your comfort zone too far. A lot of people have imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And I definitely experienced all of the types
Yeah.
you could possibly have at different times. And I think, imposter syndrome and fear kind of work together, right? Because
Hmm.
your brain is experiencing you trying something new.
Hmm.
And you have to be willing to say, I know it's different. I know it's out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm.
And you just have to recognize it's a self-protection mechanism, right? Sabotage is just trying to keep you safe. And once I recognized that, I thought, wow, okay. Those little messages I'm sending to myself, which are kind of mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't have to listen to them.
Mm.
I don't have to hear that I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not all the things.
Mm.
I just have to look at what do I have to offer? And
Hmm.
so, what I try to talk to people about is you have unique things. Every person is unique.
Yeah.
Experiences, where you've lived, where you've grown up, where you went to school, all of those things have contributed to who you are.
Hmm.
So, what is it that you have to offer that you could bring to the table
Yeah.
that others don't have? And
Mm.
let's celebrate those and embrace those in a bigger way.
Mm.
So, my example would be in IT. I didn't have an education in IT at all, but here I am in this director role leading all of these people. And me not sitting at the table was imposter syndrome. That was
Yeah.
my fear of I can't possibly compete with these people.
Mm.
But what I did have is I had tons of business experience
Yeah.
to bring to the table. So my perspective is different. So when I started to recognize I belong at this table, I can
Mm.
contribute just as much and maybe even more because I'm
Mhm.
looking at it from two perspectives, IT and business.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Those are things that helped me start to really recognize that I brought a lot more to the party and I needed to really talk about those things.
Yeah. And this idea of we are afraid to do the thing that maybe we don't feel comfortable with, and that creates this imposter syndrome. It's interesting. It sounds like for many of us, and I know I've experienced this, we kind of look at others and go, well, I don't do it that way, or I don't know how to do what they do. And we sort of then make a judgment about ourselves, like, I guess I don't know how to
Yes.
do it, as
Hmm.
opposed to what you're saying is, I can do it differently. And in some ways, it may even be better because I'm bringing this unique blend of experience to it that doesn't exist here otherwise. And that's, yeah, it might be uncomfortable at first because there's more unknowns than maybe we're used to, but there maybe is some excitement around, ooh, I get to solve a problem in a new and different way. And that's going to be a chance for me to shine. And then I'm going to have a chance to help others see what we're doing here. This is really cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I know in my advertising career and for myself and others, you can get a project and it's like, ooh, that's not my wheelhouse. That's not
Hmm.
where I usually shine. And I think for a lot of people, the first instinct is no, thank you. Can somebody else work on it? Or can we at least get some other people in here because I don't feel comfortable? But I think those experiences actually really go well. And I know for me, they did when you sort of embrace the discomfort by understanding that you will bring something interesting to it. You have faith in your blend of
Yeah.
skills. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's trusting yourself. And I didn't do that for a long time, but trusting yourself to know that you'll figure it out. You'll
Yeah.
ask for help. You'll find a new way to do things that maybe others have not considered before. And it
Hmm.
could be so much better.
Yeah.
I think we always assume the worst when our brains are wired to be the
Yeah.
negative. So I think we have to try to say, okay, I want to go to the other direction. I want to go to the positive. How can I come up with an idea
Hmm.
or talk about it with someone else to help me? And once you start doing that, it takes that fear and kind of pushes it into the background because imposter syndrome cannot survive with action.
Yeah.
So if you start taking actions, it pushes it into the background, your fear goes down, and then you start to say, okay, what can we create now?
Mm. Yeah. It almost feels like we should find a way to reframe imposter syndrome so that it naturally leads to what you're talking about. Meaning,
Hmm.
imposter syndrome is as it's currently defined in sort of experiences, like it's a roadblock, basically. And the way you're describing it is it's more of a bridge.
Hmm.
It's it's a time to pause and recognize that you have something unique to bring to the table and that you can do it differently and you have permission to do it differently. You don't have to do it the way others do it that wouldn't be comfortable for you. So there's just like an on off switch. Right now it feels like an off switch and it feels like it could become an on switch.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world of comparison, right? With
Yeah.
social media and everything else, everyone's trying to blend in. But if
Hmm.
you think about someone who is trying to get promoted, you have a lot of peers around you who can also do the same things you can do, probably.
Yeah.
So how are you going to stand out compared to them? And that's the part I think people miss is I'm not saying we don't want to feel like we belong. We
Yeah.
do, but there's also an opportunity to show that you bring a lot of value and maybe
Hmm.
you are the right one for this next role.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about the way I have experienced building teams, and others have done it as well. And it's really at its best when you really can see those distinct things that people bring. And I would say as a leader, it's partly on you to seek that out. But as the
Hmm.
person doing the thing, the more you can let that shine, the more, in advertising, sometimes that's a style thing. Like if you're a writer or a designer and you do things a little differently with a different flair or a different way of using language, it's like, ooh, she does things in an interesting way, and that's going to be really useful for these kinds of projects. And then
Yes.
this person has a totally different approach, and it's, um, yeah, I think as a leader, I think you have that responsibility to encourage people to bring that. And then you, as the person doing it, have the responsibility to bring it and shine those lights
Hmm.
on the areas where you do have a different approach. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. 100% agree. Yeah.
yeah. So there's another side of visibility that has become more relevant, I think, in recent years, which is, I'll call it sort of digital visibility. So much of our work, I mean, in some cases, all, meaning if you're working remotely,
Hmm.
everything is digital to some degree, whether it's the Zoom screen or whether it's a lot of email and Slack communication or working through a project management system. So that's a very different ballgame than being able to show up in live in-person meetings or walk down the hall and talk to your boss or talk to a peer or talk to somebody from another department. So how how can you be visible in that reality?
I have some great examples of this that I just love because they were a
Awesome.
little bit experimental on
Hmm.
my part as a coach. But for myself, I'll just say when I left Craft, I wanted to show up as a thought leader around coaching and leadership. So
Hmm.
I wrote a blog every day for 18 months.
Hmm.
And I had never written anything ever. It took me a week to hit the submit button before I did it. But
Wow.
it was kind of a moment of wow, okay, so people are responding to my stories, all of that kind of stuff was starting to happen, and that's how I got my first clients
Mm,
because they saw something. I was pretty vulnerable in my experiences, and they saw
yeah.
that.
Mm,
So that's how I started doing it, and then I've just been consistent ever since. And consistency is, like one of the top things that helps. But so for clients, though, what I've done with them, which I think, your listeners might be able to take advantage of, is trying to leverage their professional life, but also what else is important to them.
mm,
So I have one client who is a VP. He definitely wants to go to the next level. And so we talked about how could he not only be internally more visible, but also externally.
mm,
And so he is talking about when he goes for a run, here's some of the things I think about, or here's how to help your mental health, giving yourself time and space to think. And
mm-hmm.
he's doing this purposely. So I said,
Yeah.
what do you have with you? You're traveling. He's like, I got my running shoes. I'm like, take a picture of your running shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put that as the picture that you post
Mm-hmm.
going out on a run before our big meeting today. You're
Yeah.
talking about it from a work perspective. Another person that I have wanted to increase her visibility. And so she started posting longer posts than she ever had, but looking at when she was traveling, going to somewhere where she had grown up or where she had been
Mm-hmm.
before, and the lessons she's learned since then.
Mm,
So all of these different ways of talking about your life, because
yeah.
we're one person,
Mm-hmm.
professionally and personally, we kind of have to cross over at some point.
Yeah.
And so using those personal opportunities to help people relate to you, but talking about them from a business perspective or
Yeah.
what you've learned
Mm-hmm.
actually makes you so much more relatable.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
those and those people, I can't give it away too much, but like they are almost very visible now, more visible than they ever expected to be.
Yeah.
And it was so unexpected. Like people
Mm.
know who they are without them even having met them,
Wow.
just because of how much they're posting or what they're posting, not how much. They're not doing it as much as I am, but
Yeah.
what they're posting is making a difference and it's
Mm.
connecting with people.
Yeah. There's so much fear around that. You mentioned like your own, taking a week before you hit send. And I mean, I've worked with clients where it can take a long time to get that comfort. But it seems like some of the lessons are very similar, meaning we presume that, let's say you're trying to get promoted, or maybe you're thinking about other opportunities, or maybe you're thinking I may want to start my own thing at some point, or whatever those things
Hmm.
are. And that same presumption can come out. Like, as soon as I tell people like who I am and what I've done, just kind of give them the resume, they'll be like, of course you can help me with this stuff. And it just rarely works that way.
Yeah, yeah,
You really need people to get to know you. I mean, that feeling of, I know you before I even, without ever meeting you,
right.
that there are people on LinkedIn for sure that I feel that way about.
Yeah.
Um, and I would trust them with things that others I wouldn't trust with, because
Hmm.
I know who that person is. You've opened that door, and the artful ones find a way to do it where it isn't bragging. There are definitely people who brag,
Yes.
but the most artful ones, I think, find a way to share both vulnerably, like I struggled with this, but also weave in how they kind of worked their way through that challenge. And therefore you can see, might be interesting if they helped me with a similar challenge. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
I
hard.
mean, my stories, I was too into the details. I was doing things for my team because I knew their job better, than my
Yeah.
own at the time. It
Mhm.
was more comfortable.
Yeah.
But those are lessons that I had to learn how to deal with and be a leader of people and not do their job for them.
Hmm.
And I had clients come to me say, "Okay, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm doing that. How did you figure it out? What do I do?" So I think there's just an important part about sharing a bit of yourself
Hmm.
and letting people know that you aren't perfect, you don't
Yeah.
have all the answers, but you learned from this and you're willing to share those lessons with other people.
Yeah. I think that's valuable, whether it's on LinkedIn or a blog or anything like that, or even within
Hmm.
the workplace, and just cracking that door open enough so that people see you as a person who has both gone through stuff and overcome stuff, and therefore, hmm, oh, I'm allowed to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little permission slip, I call it.
Yeah, yeah. We don't always think we have it, right? You think
Yeah.
if everybody's putting on that front that I've got it all figured out, well, you wonder why people burn out or get, mental health challenges. Is because you're trying to be something that human beings have never been, which is perfect, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believed it was possible though for a long
Of
time.
course. I think everybody goes through someplace like, of course I can do it. Yeah.
You can do it, but I can do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Totally.
I don't require a lot of sleep, and I think that helped me try
Yeah.
to show perfection a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't realize, but it takes a lot of energy, to
Mm.
be something that you're not in the
Yeah.
workplace and then go home, you're exhausted
Yeah.
because you've put this front on the whole day and nobody knows the truth. And so there is a balancing act that you really have to be mindful of for your own
Yeah.
energy, your own health, all of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, and we go home and bring that to whoever's in our home with us. That's no fun. You know.
Nope. Mm-mm. Not
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I mean, there's a flip side of this that I want to bring up real quick, because this idea of being a little more vulnerable and showing ourselves. I think for some people they might go, okay, I get that, but I'm afraid that if I do it, somehow it might become weaponized against me. I show
Mm.
weakness and then others will pounce. And that's this sort of political game. So, in the midst of the reality that offices can be political and people can be looking for that, how do you navigate that?
I mean, to me, I think that is where you building this support from others, right?
Hmm.
Because, a team or a group is stronger than an individual sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
I think at times it depends who's doing it. I mean, you might have a leader who's doing it to you,
Yeah.
which is really challenging to work
Yeah.
under.
Hmm.
But if a peer is doing it, I find that there's ways to start to build your own people around you, right? The people
Hmm.
who are going to support you, sharing your ideas. For
Yeah.
example, if somebody takes your idea, right, and they start to say, well, that was my idea. Well, actually, she shared it with me 2 weeks ago. So I don't know
Yeah.
how it could be your idea. So
Mm,
you have to get support
yeah.
from others
Hmm.
to help you in that moment because it feels really lonely if somebody
Yeah.
is being difficult and it's hard to work with that. It creates its own drama to deal with. And that's not good for people to work in that kind of toxicity all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting world. I think you have to take individual cases and deal with them however it's
Yeah.
happening. But I don't know. In my experience, I find that if you can have your group, your tribe around you that can
Hmm.
help you, it just kind of pushes that down because that person cannot be stronger than a group.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. I know I resisted some of that, what I'll call coalition building, um,
Mm.
in the past. It's, I carried a little bit of that. Well, it shouldn't be this way, so therefore I'm not going to acknowledge it. I don't
Yes.
want to play politics, so therefore, and it, and what you're describing doesn't feel like playing politics to me. It just feels like acknowledging reality and thinking,
Hmm.
how can I create ongoing support for what I'm trying to do, and also how can I support others in their efforts and become, we can become a useful team of people rather than, five individuals all trying to protect our little
Right.
fiefdoms, which is, I
Well,
think, that's what it can
yeah,
look like when we,
it sure can.
yeah,
And I used to say that too. I don't want to play politics. I don't want to do this.
yeah,
But I think that's the interesting thing is when we're trying to protect or hold on to something so tightly, we're actually putting ourselves in a box
yeah,
because we cannot go on to the next thing if
hmm,
we're the only one who knows it.
yeah,
So I've had team members in the past. I said, do you know how much more value you could add to the organization if you did these things instead of this one little thing that you're holding on to for dear life?
yeah,
It's not helping you.
yeah,
So sometimes we can't see that. We have to pick our brain up a little bit and say, okay, is this really valuable to the
mm-hmm,
organization? Maybe not.
yeah,
And sometimes you just need another perspective to help you with that.
yeah, I get that. So one thing that's been a little bit of a buzz in the sort of social media sphere lately is um, the Gen Z stare. Have you heard about this at all? Uh, and and I don't mean it to, I'm not here to pick on Gen Z, but I think what probably happens with every younger generation, but the feeling that I certainly hear from some folks and what's coming about with this Gen Z stare phenomenon is that the younger generation is struggling to communicate effectively and therefore how could you possibly be visible in the way you need to if the experience people are having of you is that it doesn't feel like we're connecting. I think that's the
Hmm.
idea of the Gen Z stare is that you're trying to connect with someone and they're just kind of looking at you. And it's like, I don't want to like unearth all the psychology behind that, but I will give some acknowledgement that Gen Z went through COVID and entered the workplace during COVID, a lot of folks, and like what a terrible time to enter the
Yes.
workplace or have been in college or whatever. And so some of those skills that come really naturally when you're just in the world and getting exposure the way we might have gotten it can be harder. But with all that said,
Yeah,
do you have any thoughts on how
I do.
to improve those skills?
Yeah, I have two. Well, I actually have three Gen Z. One's kind of on the millennial
Yeah.
boundary there. So I get to see a lot of that. And my own experience with the two oldest who are girls is
Hmm.
they used to fight over text. So one would be upstairs, one would be downstairs, and they would be
Hmm.
just texting away. And then they're both texting me, telling me what's going on. I said, come to the living room. Just come into the living room. Why? Just come to the living room and bring your phone. And so I literally made them give me their phones and have a conversation.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of, oh my gosh, I can't possibly do this.
Yeah.
But I knew that they were going to have conversations in the workplace at some
Hmm.
point.
Yeah.
And they both ended up leading in college in different things. And so those lessons, although painful,
Hmm.
allowed them to feel like, you know what, you can have a conversation with two roommates who aren't getting along, or
Yeah.
in the workplace with two coworkers who aren't getting along.
Hmm.
So I think that was an important moment. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought before I did. I was just
Yeah.
annoyed that
I
they
get
wouldn't
it.
just have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it's good for everybody to recognize that they have been, like one of the first generations to grow up with a phone
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Everything
Yeah.
is on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up that way for sure. And I know you didn't either. So
Yeah.
we all had our lessons to learn around technology.
Mm-hmm.
The phone is, if you want to think of it, it's like a security blanket.
Yeah.
And so when they don't have it, they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has taken place on their phone, which means they don't have to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like when I was in high school, I'd come home, I wouldn't have to see everybody. If they wanted to call me on my house phone, they
Mm-hmm.
could, or
Yeah.
come to my house.
Yeah.
But we got a break from
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah.
And they don't ever get a break because they
Mm-hmm.
can see celebrities, their friends, everybody
Yeah.
24/7 if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So just recognizing that that is their mindset is everything goes through my phone.
Yeah.
Now, I've worked with some clients who, of course, did not appreciate that.
Yeah.
Some more from my generation, and they
Mm-hmm.
had asked someone, please call me about blah, blah, blah problem. And the person responds on text, what do you need? And the person responds back, please call me. I need to talk to you about this. Well, what's your question on text? I would like you to call me. Well, just tell me what your question is and I'll call, and I'll text you back the answer. So their go-to response is
Mm-hmm.
text.
Yeah.
People are breaking up with people on text. People are, just doing everything on text. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't know another way
Yeah.
if they have not been exposed to it. So then imagine right now, that's their mindset. You throw them into the workplace, and the workplace still works like probably you and I know, right?
Yeah.
Where you actually have a conversation. You walk over to someone's desk. You
Mm-hmm.
are in a meeting and you need to participate.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with that.
Mm.
So to me, I think we have to have a little compassion for what they've grown up in
Yeah.
and recognize that we played a role in it
Mm-hmm.
as parents
Yeah.
and leaders at the time, right? So
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just helping them understand the importance of the conversation, what you could
Mm-hmm.
learn.
Yeah.
So I work with a lot of my daughter's friends, to be honest, and helping them navigate this world of how can they succeed? How
Mm.
can they progress? How
Yeah.
can they talk about what they want in a way that people can hear them? To
Mm.
me, that's the thing. Even if they're talking, they feel like they're not heard.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is interesting is leaders today, right or wrong, have to lead them differently. You can't
Mm-hmm.
lead them the way you were led.
Yeah.
And that is the difference. And they
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize that in all cases.
Yeah.
But these newer generations, what I love about them is they want to do things differently.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
They care about purpose. They
Mm-hmm.
care about the future and they want to be developed.
Yeah.
So I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you in certain situations I've seen, there's no development. There's like, go do this
Yeah.
without any explanation, without helping them understand the why behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So, they feel like, should I stay here? No one's developing me.
Yeah.
So I think they're hungry for it. So if you're a leader of anyone as a Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
have a little compassion and then ask what they'd like to be developed in or help them get development in what you see that they need. Maybe it's
Mm.
communication. Maybe
Yeah.
it's interpersonal skills. Maybe it's just how to present in front of an audience,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think we have to help them because we
Yeah.
helped create this, right? We can't just say, it's all their fault, but
Mm.
understanding a little bit behind how they think has
Mm-hmm.
helped me be able to coach them
Yeah.
and recognize that they actually have a lot of great ideas because
Mm-hmm.
they think differently.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, it's this idea of meeting people where they are, right?
Hmm.
And as you describe it within an organization, I think what I see from some folks is a desire to just sort of cram them into the system that exists. And I get it. On some level, that feels easy.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we've always done things. Now come in. And I think what you're describing is not a complete sort of acquiescence, like we're just going to all work on texts now and do things that are
No.
comfortable for you, but more one, recognizing where they are when they come in and then going, okay, how can we develop some of the skills that they're going to need? Because the world is how it is right now, but then also getting curious about what can we be learning from them that can help us start to think about how we can evolve, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to be leading
Right.
all of this, right? And so the more you can help them bring their magic stuff into the workplace and really connect to how they can add value and being open, like, yeah, maybe we don't need to do it the way we've always done it here. Like at least listening and giving it a fair shake. I think our instincts on both sides is to kind of, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then we just
Oh,
fight.
yeah. Well, your point is valid. It's easier,
Yeah.
right, to do that. But we also have to keep in mind, I believe it's 12,000 baby boomers are retiring every day.
Yeah.
So if we are not preparing these next generations for the future, who's going to run these companies?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the leadership in these companies? So that's what
Yeah.
I think about when I talk to companies.
Mm-hmm.
Are you preparing your bench?
Yeah.
What are you doing to prepare your bench?
Mm-hmm.
Because they need help. So I've created programs to do that because they had no idea that they needed to even be thinking about that. So sometimes, I can see it from a different perspective because I've
Mm-hmm.
been in other companies, but when you're in your own company, you have to start to say, are we really preparing for the future? And
Yeah.
that means not only products and processes and all of that, but our people.
Yeah. And it means we have to actually care about the future, right? Because I think so many incentives push us to only think about what's in front of us, and
Hmm.
things are moving fast. And if you're in a public company, there's, quarterly earnings and all that stuff versus having some interest in the perpetuation and growth of the organization, which I think actually happens through what you're talking about. The more we're visible to each other, the more we're connected to each other, the more we care about each other, the more we see this as a group of human beings doing a thing rather than this esoteric, corporation or company,
Right.
the more it becomes something that we feel some ownership in, and therefore we care enough to continue that growth and pass that on to the other generations. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I was so lucky to have been part of the IT group I was part of, and for them to recognize that we have to become business partners. We cannot just be the
Yeah.
IT people who take orders. We have
Mm-hmm.
to be partners.
Yeah.
And that is a big shift for
Mm-hmm.
IT at that point in time. Creating a leadership program, sending us to different programs outside the company,
Mm-hmm.
all of that was intended to raise our level of business knowledge, our IT knowledge, but also to show up as an equal
Yeah.
with people in the room so we didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel inferior.
Yeah.
And I think that's an opportunity for everybody to start to think about how can we just raise the level of our leadership in our teams, no matter what level you are. You
Yeah.
don't have to be a leader of a team to be a leader. You can be a leader
Mm-hmm.
at any level. So
Agreed.
how can we raise that level up for everybody?
Mm. Yeah, I like that. And I think that feels like what's needed to then create that sense of really being connected to and caring about where things go in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I've asked you a fair number of questions. I want to give you a chance to ask a question of our audience. Do you have something for them?
I would ask them, what are you doing to be visible? Because I think it's a question we have to almost put in front of ourselves on a regular basis. It can be really easy to just become an automatic pilot and doing all the meetings and getting to the end of the day. And then you might have kids and all the things. But ask yourself, are you really being visible? Do people know me? Do they know what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Who have I talked to that could have an influence on my career that
Yeah.
I haven't talked to in a while and I need to share with them?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good, just simple question to ask, but I know there's a lot underneath that.
Yeah.
But just sit with it for a minute and just be truthful with yourself. Am I really doing enough to be visible? Talking about my accomplishments, showing my value.
Mm.
Because the other side of that is not always a good thing for people, and they just don't see it until it's too late.
Yeah. I did a quick zoom through my own timeline and I'm realizing, okay, I could have done a little better at this and maybe a lot better at this at certain points in my career. So I
Mhm.
imagine everybody will have a similar experience where it's not always where we want it to be. But that's part of what is great about what you're doing is you're starting to help people see just how
Mhm.
how much this can matter and how much you can own it. And I love that the idea that it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be this weird false bravado thing, but it's more authentically sharing the value you bring.
Yeah.
We've probably touched on some of this, but I'm curious if you could wave a magic wand and create this fully desuckified work world, what does that look like?
Oh, I think I try to create a lot of what I came from, which is leaders care about their teams and developing them, and they want to see them succeed, but they also hold them accountable. They
Mm.
also want them to do great work.
Yeah.
It's not that we just want to let people off the hook, you know. So I think it's creating this workforce or this workplace that really does care about people. You know, a lot of people talking about being a more human workplace.
Yeah.
And I think we need that.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of things that we could shift when people come together. And, you know, imagine you're working in a company and you know that your leadership cares about you. I
Mhm.
used to get handwritten letters from my senior directors and VPs for
Mm.
my birthday, for my anniversary,
Wow.
when I did well on a project. I kept all of those.
That's amazing.
So it changes the way you show up when you know that people care about you
Hmm.
versus if I'm not sure if they care about me. I'm not sure if they never give me feedback, so I don't even know how I'm really doing.
Yeah.
That's a different experience for people.
Hmm.
So that's what I would love for people to be able to have something similar to what I went through. It feels like
Yeah.
it's sometimes not as often happening in companies,
Yeah, I get it.
unfortunately, but
Yeah.
it's definitely possible, right? It's just a decision, making the
Yeah.
decision to do it.
Yeah. It is possible. And I love that the way you frame that. It certainly sounds wonderful to me. And I think to the extent that it's not happening now, I would say there's definitely a pushbacks to that. There is a pretty strong energy of people craving a more human workplace. In particular, as AI comes in, it's like, okay, this
Mm-hmm.
technology is taking over a lot of things, but how do we still bring the humanity into whatever we're trying to do, whether it's how we use the technology or how we relate to each other around that, or just what it means to be at work and be humans in a really weird, rapidly changing world.
Yeah, I mean, change is a constant, right? We've always had
Yeah.
change. This is just one more
Yeah.
type of change.
Hmm.
And how do you navigate the world with it and,
Yeah.
you know, embrace it where it makes sense? And, but you still need somebody to feed information in. You still need somebody to understand what came out of it. So, you know, you still need that human analysis and conversation. And is it the right thing for us to even do?
Yeah.
You know, some of
Yeah.
those questions that I think people just go and don't ask the question.
Yeah. That's a great one. Yeah. I think we often fast forward through that decision. Yeah.
Hmm.
So one of the ways I've always tried to make work more human is by having a little fun. And so I want to have a little fun now and invite you to share a sound effect because I always have sound effects on my show. If you've listened, you probably heard some sounds, some
Hmm.
cats and other stuff.
I
So
have.
do you want to add a desuckified sound effect to our show?
I will give it a go. It may not be the best you've ever had,
That's all right.
but I'm going to do a cat. So, meow,
It's
meow.
great.
That's my
I
cat. There you
believe it.
go.
I believe it. My cats are probably outside the office right now wondering, who is that?
What did you brought a cat in there? What's going on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. Last question I always want to ask is, where can people find you online? Learn about your book, your podcast, do your work, all the good stuff you're doing.
Well, you can go to my website. It's Susan M as in Mary, Barber.com, or I'm on LinkedIn. So I would love to connect with anybody that I can help or answer any questions from your audience. I
Hmm.
think we all need to kind of work together and get to a better place in leadership. So if
Mm.
I can help with any resources I have, happy to do that. I think I'm at 176 episodes on the podcast,
Mm.
which is also called The Visibility Factor. The book is called The Visibility Factor. The podcast is called the same, To Keep It Easy.
I like it.
The new workbook is called Your Journey to Visibility, which actually walks people through their own career journey first.
Mm.
Then it gets into what are some of the things in visibility that most people experience and how to think about it. And then it goes into specifically what are your challenges and
Mm.
assessing your challenges and then giving you solutions specific for your challenges.
Mm.
So I like to think of this one as the what was the first book. Here's what it is. Here's why it's important. This one is about
Mm.
how to have the language, how to position yourself for success.
Yeah.
Those are things that I have recognized that I couldn't put all of that in the first book or it would have been
Sure.
huge.
Yeah.
So it's a good opportunity to do it through your own reflection and learning, but I really would like to get it into companies and help them do it with
Yeah.
teams. We talked about a great workplace. Imagine
Mhm.
if we could get all of the teams to share together. There are so many ideas and creativity and innovation that are being held back because someone isn't speaking up. So let's create a world where they all feel comfortable and safe enough to do that.
Well, that feels like a perfect place to land this one. I think you said it all right there. That was wonderful. So, Sue, thank you so much for just being an amazing guest. I feel like I learned a lot during this episode, and it's got my brain spinning on things, both in terms of my own visibility and helping others with their visibility. And I encourage people to look you up, read your book, read the new one, listen to your podcast, all that good stuff. I'll put all of that stuff in the show notes as well so people can find it nice and easy.
Thank you. It was a great conversation. I loved it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sue. Well, have a good rest of your day. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Sue for bringing a wise and witty perspective to the show. You can follow Sue on LinkedIn and check out her site at susanbarber.com, where you can learn more about her book, her podcast, and all the awesome work she's doing. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to help your teams bring their absolute best to work, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone.